We have a guest today, Jane Birch from the Faculty Center. We have other guests here from the Faculty Center who are joining us in the back. But I wanted to... She's going to be talking with us a little bit about having a spiritually strengthening experience at BYU for education. How many here can quote the part of the mission statement from the university that's unique in all the world?
The Jeopardy question.
The Jeopardy question, Lenya. What is it? You know? Does anybody know? So it says that it's to assist individuals in their quest for perfection and eternal life. Last year, at the beginning, one of the beginning seminars, we had the students actually read the second century address, which is the address that President Kimball gave at the, what year was it? It's the beginning of the second century of existence of BYU.
1976.
1976 or something like that, where he talks about the mission of BYU and talks about the important role that BYU has. That it's not just our role, if all we do is educate students the same way they do at every other university, there's not really a reason for us to exist as a unique institution. So we as a department are committed to that. We want to learn and figure out, as faculty in the department, learn to figure out how we can best make this a unique experience for you, an experience that's spiritually strengthening. That's also one of the BYU aims, right? To not only have an intellectually enlarging experience while you're here, but to have a spiritually strengthening experience while you're here. And so we as a faculty are committed to that. We want to learn how to do that. We've got some help from the Faculty Center this past year. They did some interviews with you. We've talked about the results of those interviews and the survey as a faculty. We're exploring ways that we can improve our part of the stewardship of making this a spiritually strengthening experience for you. I've asked Jane to talk a little bit about that today, or invited her to come talk a little bit about that today, but also to focus on the other part of that experience, which is where your stewardship is, right? It's not just our responsibility as faculty to make this a spiritually strengthening experience. In fact, at least half the burden rests on your shoulders to make sure that it's a spiritually strengthening experience for you and for the peers that you engage with. And so I hope that as Jane and others talk to us today, that you'll be thinking and asking yourself, what can I do to commit to make my experience here at BYU a more spiritually strengthening one? And what role do I have in making my classes more spiritually strengthening and improving the experience of the peers and colleagues that I engage with? So with that introduction, Jane, I turn the table
Thank
over.
you. Thank you, Thomas. I am more than delighted to be here today and to see so many friendly faces. I love it. Maybe I can start by saying a little bit about myself. I was once in your shoes. I don't remember that my cohort looked as beautiful as all of you. I had a chance to at least get to know a few people or shake hands with a few people on this side of the room, and look forward to meeting people on this side of the room too. But I graduated from this program in 1994. Maybe most of you were not born at that time, but so, but you know, after 8 long, grueling years, you know, actually they flew by. They were delightful. I loved my experience here. We all did. It was spiritually strengthening. It was very spiritually strengthening for me at that time, as well as intellectually enlarging. And I can tell that's the kind of experience you're having. Well, there is life after graduation. I actually stayed here at Brigham Young University. I went to work for the BYU Faculty Center. Some of you may not be aware that BYU has a faculty center. Our job is to support the great faculty here on campus. So you might wonder what the heck we can do. The faculty we hire are so great to start with. And that's really true. We have got great faculty. But as good as we are, we can be much better. And part of our role is to help them not only teaching, scholarship, the rank and status process, review, promotion and tenure, but significantly their role in the unique mission of BYU. And that's something that's always been a passion of mine. I have loved the topic of the unique mission of BYU. David Williams and other people here when I was an undergraduate can verify this has always been my passion. I loved it as a student here. I thought about it a lot as a graduate student here, and I wanted to do something to make a difference in this area, and I thought the BYU Faculty Center would be a great place to do so. And sure enough, it's been a wonderful place, and I've really enjoyed it. We have enjoyed our recent collaboration with Dr. Graham and the IP&T faculty, who have very graciously allowed us to visit with them and with all of you. Hopefully most of you filled out the survey that we sent in August. Do you recall a survey about different aspects of spiritually strengthening? And then many of you also participated in some focus groups we had. We gave you a copy, we tried to distribute a copy of that to all of you via Michelle Bray and this in conjunction with this seminar. Hopefully you saw it. If you didn't get a chance to see it, you can revisit afterwards. But we were trying to get from you your expectations when you came into the department and then your current experience. And we also got from you a lot of stories and examples of the excellent things that the IP&T faculty are doing to make your classes both spiritually strengthening and intellectually enlarging. I hope, by the way, that's one of the reasons you came here to BYU. If it's not, I hope it's one of the reasons you're staying here, and that's becoming very meaningful to you. Well, one of the things we found in our research is that the IP&T faculty are doing a fantastic job. And one of the things we realized also from this experience is that you students really care. And we loved our conversations. We loved reading your comments. We loved our focus groups, sessions with you. They were spiritually strengthening for us. We could feel your commitment. We could feel your love. We could feel your appreciation for the faculty here. And also your willingness to be challenged by them. So both spiritually and intellectually experience that growth. So all that's wonderful. We're doing a great job. So you might ask, well, why are we talking about this in today? We're doing a great job. Let me tell you why I think, one reason at least. Recently, our new Commissioner of Church Education just recently appointed Elder Kim Clark, former BYU Idaho president. He came down to BYU just last month to talk to our leaders here at BYU. And his message, I think, is something that is not just for leaders, it's for all of us. But what he said, and I quote, "As good as we are, we've got to be much, much better." As good as we are, we've got to be much, much better. I hope that excites you, because it excites me because BYU is awesome. I love BYU. I love the things that are happening here. Amazing things are happening here. But his vision, which means the vision of our church leaders, is that as good as BYU is, it can and must be better. One of the specific things he mentioned is we need to have students engaging in deep learning. The learning that translates into character. Now that's a theme that our President Worthen, has been also stressing, character. If you attended the last devotional, you heard him talk about that. Does anyone remember the kind of the basic theme of the last devotional? Remember the story used? Any remember? Do you remember him talking about Laman and Lemuel and the master murmurers they are? So he talked about how sometimes we're murmurers, and even in our schoolwork, we're having a great time, right? Hopefully. But sometimes, we're a little oppressed by the homework and things we got to do. Well, one of the things that President Worthen tried to stress is if we go back and study, reread, and ponder the mission of Brigham Young University, that will help us to, if we understand the meaning behind it, that will help us to be able to do the very difficult, hard things we're asked to do. And so I extend that invitation to you too. President Worthen, since he was first became, took the leadership role here at BYU, he has been urging all of us, faculty, staff, students, to reread the mission of BYU and the aims of a BYU education, which are listed up here. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about what it means, what is the student role in all of this? Spiritually strengthening, intellectually enlarging, character building, leading to lifelong learning and service. And I want you to each be thinking about your particular role as part of this bigger community. We've talked a little bit with the faculty about their role, and they're planning on to doing more discussions, but this session, Dr. Graham suggested I focus on you and your role, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the suggestions you have. We're going to do that in some small group discussions and have some whole group, but I thought first we would pull up a few examples from the recent survey that we did, and kind of look at what the survey results are, and then consider, and I'd like to hear from you, what you feel like your role is. Let's go to where is Thomas? There we go. Thank you, Thomas, for helping. Yeah. I should mention, several of the IP&T students are part of the Faculty Center also. That's Thomas Farron here, and Beth Wilkins, and Jackie Johnson. Also Matt Armstrong is here, and they all collaborated with us on this survey that we did. Okay, here's one of the results: creating a learning environment that invites the Spirit. We asked students both, how important is this to you? And then how frequently it's happening. How important and frequently. There's not a big difference between the mean. If you see 7.9, 7.3, you can see that there is significant, but not a huge difference, and that's what we noticed on most of the questions that we asked. Not a huge difference. In other words, faculty are doing pretty good. Students feel like this is very important, and they feel like their faculty are doing a good job, but maybe not quite as good as they would like. So that's a little bit of a challenge there for not just faculty but students. Yes,
Yeah,
Dr. Graham.
I just want to say this is a dual responsibility. I mean, I don't know if any of you heard the story of President Kimball asked if he'd ever been in a boring sacrament meeting, right? Well, having a spiritual experience in a sacrament meeting isn't just the job of the person who's giving the sacrament meeting talks. It's also the job of the receiver. And so that, I think, there's this dual responsibility here that I hope we're able to explore. The faculty are trying to do their best, and I hope the students also will do their best to make this experience, this learning experience, one that's spiritually strengthening.
Thank you. Let's start right now. Who can give maybe an example of the student role in creating a learning environment that invites the Spirit? What are some ideas that you have? Yes?
Preparation of class materials, so if there's something to read, come here to discuss it.
I hope all you faculty back there heard that, because I'm sure you'll be happy about that. Being prepared for class, reading the material, doing the homework assigned, yes. They would love that. Do you agree, faculty, that would help bring the Spirit? Students are prepared?
I'll feel a special spirit if my students read everything.
Okay, Rick. Dr. West, thank you. Fantastic. We heard it. And I saw thumbs up there in the back from, was that Dr. Rich? All right. All right, any other suggestions? What is your role in making it spiritually, an environment that invites the Spirit? Yes?
You have to come with the right attitude. You have to come in willing to be open and receptive to new ideas and things of God.
Excellent. Great. I love that. That is so true. Any others? Yes?
I think mindfulness of other students and
Oh.
of the teacher of yourself and respectfulness of everyone around you.
Oh my. Folks, what if all of us did just these three things every time we came to class? We prepared. We had the right attitude. We were mindful of the students around us. Wow. Dr. Graham, did you want to say something?
Yeah, outside of the classroom. I mean, there's a lot of learning that takes place in the classroom, but there's a lot that takes place outside the classroom as you work on teams, as you're working with each other in groups, as you're studying on your own. And so, you know, thinking about how your openness to those kinds of experiences can happen not just in that classroom environment, but when you're working on a group project, or when you're reading your assignment, in your home
That's
tonight, or
That's an important point, and we're just going to break in just a minute to do small group discussions. And when I do, I want you to focus on the student role in fulfilling the aims of BYU education, not just in the classroom, but in these other areas that Dr. Graham was talking about, and also one-on-one with professors, doing internships, working on a thesis, dissertation, all these different roles. Let's go to the next slide, Thomas. Another area that we asked students to reflect on was faculty sharing experiences about their own development. And as you can see, again, students really thought this was extremely important. Almost all of the votes were for extremely important. They love it when faculty share their own experience about their own development. But when we come over to frequency, yeah, very good, very positive. The IP&T faculty are doing this, but could they do better? Yes, students would like them to do better. Well, do the students have a role in this? How could the students play a role in this factor? What can students do to encourage this? Yes, Sue.
We can ask our faculty
Yes.
to fill what their experiences and background are and try to, in God language, capture more of their values and purposes and research questions.
Good. I love that. Remember, faculty are really trying to do a good job, and sometimes they may be hesitant to talk about themselves, fearing that that's taking away from the course content, and maybe it looks like they just want to talk about themselves. But if they recognize from you that you're eager to hear and you ask them questions, that can be helpful. Let's go to the next slide, Thomas. All right, we put these together because they're somewhat related. The first is allowing students to be agents involved in the learning process in a way that is personally meaningful. And the other is getting to know students well enough that they can individualize their learning. So this is about faculty treating students like agents and individualizing their learning. Again, very important. Again, faculty doing well and some room for improvement. In this one, is there a role for students in this? What can students do to help facilitate this, make it easier for faculty, to encourage it? Yes.
There is, sometimes you're not sure that all the students have read an assignment. And so, I don't know how they're expressing their agency when they do that.
Good. Thank you.
There's a kind of a funny thing that happens. Students sign up for these expensive classes with these expensive faculty members. And immediately the first question is, how little can I do to get a grade? And so I know that there's a lot of room for faculty to improve, but I think there's room for students to express their eagerness to learn, and the fact that they are in charge of their own learning, that they realize that.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Gibbons. Yes.
I've only been in the program for like 3 weeks, and every professor I've approached and said, hey, can I come talk to you about X, Y, Z? They've said, yeah, come on over. When's a good time for you?
But you took the initiative, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's definitely not an unwillingness to meet with students in a one-on-one type of situation. Class time is not necessarily the best location to individualize your learning or to get direction on things, and so I think that if you just take the time to ask.
Excellent. Sue?
Before I took the foundations class, Dr. West sent me an email saying, oh wow, we really need to make sure that this class is going to be useful to you, so be sure that you tell me how you would like it to tailor for what your directions are. And I think all the faculty would do that if we went through it. I can't think of a faculty member that wouldn't say, oh, you're interested in this project, do this, do this for the project for our guy.
Excellent, wonderful. I love all these suggestions. Great. Go on. Discussing subjects from the field from a gospel perspective. Here's another one where student questions and comments can be very useful. But I want to move on now to a small group discussion. What I'd like to do is just at your group there, engage each other in discussion. We are, and I'll say we because I'm an alumni here, we are an IP&T community. We are trying to help each other. Faculty are trying to help us. We're trying to help the faculty. We're trying to help each other as students. What is our role? What can we do? What do you feel like you could do personally better? Let's just take the next few minutes, maybe next 10 minutes, to discuss that. And we'll come back and kind of discuss together as a whole group. Is that clear? Well, we had a great discussion up here at our table. One of the points that was made that I think is important is sometimes, and I've heard this from a few students, sometimes students feel a little uncomfortable making a gospel-related comment in a class. That's possible. I've heard students being a little bit apologetic, since we are here at BYU, maybe I can make this comment, feel like they have to kind of make an excuse for it. I think that brings up a good point. That is, the students definitely have a role, but it's really nice when the faculty set the table and invite that type of discussion. It doesn't dominate the discussion, of course, but where it's appropriate, students can feel very comfortable doing that. Another thing we talked about is not just the gospel connections that we just talked about. There's many other dimensions. What are some of the things that you talked about at your tables that you felt impressed about? Maybe even some things that you would like to try. Yes, Dr. Gibbons.
You talked about what BYU could have done to win that game.
More prayer, is that right?
Not true. It's all lies.
It's just the pride cycle.
The pride cycle. I'm sure more prayer would help. What did you really talk about there at that table?
Lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning. Excellent.
We talked about the fact that when you leave school, you think, it's all going to be over. I won't have to write any more reports, reading more books or articles. I can just kind of relax. And actually the opposite is true. You will find yourself, there's a scene in, the Robin Williams, the Peter Pan movie, I can't remember. Hook. There's a scene where the lost boys have got him in a slingshot and they're about to let go of the slingshot. And when you graduate, that's basically what's happening. You're going out into a world that's moving faster than you have been moving and has higher expectations than you had made it.
That highlights the importance, too, of being spiritually prepared for that launch. Other things. What things impressed you about maybe something someone else said at your table that you hadn't thought about before? Yes?
We were talking about how maybe at the end of the semester, a teacher will feel inclined to, ramp up the spiritual stuff so that you get good evaluations. If it seems forced, or if it's not natural, then it doesn't have the same effect at all. And so if it's just rather, interweaved into everything that you're talking about, rather than, okay, now here's my 15-minute spiritual module.
Good. And what role does the student have in that? I mean, can the student help the professor? I mean, how can the student play a role in the community to help bring that about so that it kind of happens throughout the semester?
Perhaps steering with questions and just saying, in my study, this was a question that I have. What would you answer?
Good. I like that.
We talked about a little bit about how the student needs to be willing to, there might be some things that they are frustrated about, at BYU or with a teacher with something, and you need to really be introspective and find a good place for you, find a balance for you where you will be willing to offer you're willing to engage in this type of feeling.
Excellent. Openness, and other people can feel that when you're open too. Yes?
We talked about how peers tend to have a bigger influence than professors even, so that it's good to be proactive and just even do things socially together and support each other outside of class.
Excellent. And speaking of prayers, have you ever been praying for your professor? Maybe even during class praying for your professor. I'm sure everyone could appreciate that.
We need it.
Everyone needs that. How do you feel when you're in front of a congregation if you feel the prayers coming from those sitting there, you know, you feel supported? Other ideas? Yes. Go.
Well, what we talked about is just like participation. So participation in class, even, you know, bringing up gospel topics, like it happened in our design class this morning that John brought up something about seminary. And so that's able to invite that gospel conversation without like, and it applied to the lesson, it was relevant. And just also participation in taking advantage of opportunities like internships or research, you know, in that way you're going to get to know the professors as well. They're going to get to know you. You're going to be able to, like, intellectually enlarging yourself, and also, you know, you're building character. You're able to, in the lifelong learning and service, it talks about, like, using your knowledge and skills. And so when you actively seek out those opportunities, you're really getting out of your education what you're putting into it. And so even just, it could be something more introspective, like thinking, what can I learn from this class, or how can this help me in my career, or how can this help me spiritually? So just being an active participant, which is just something really broad, but just making that conscious effort in every class or every assignment to be there and to actually participate and not just check it off your list or do it just to do it.
I love that. And it occurs to me that it doesn't even have to be a gospel conversation, just being prepared, actively engaging in the conversation, showing your support for the students and the faculty. To me, when we act like that, human with each other, we're present in the moment and we're engaged, that brings in the Spirit too. The Spirit can help us not just with the gospel learning, but with the secular learning, with even programming, with anything. Yes?
To kind of to build on that, we talked about consecrated learning, where, you know, we come to this program with kind of a purpose in mind. Maybe we don't know exactly what we want to do, but we're dedicated to kind of the aims, not just of the university we attend, but also the fields that we're getting into. We're interested in the ideas. Something that came to me while thinking about this is when we do that, and when everyone does that, brings a sense of unity. And in my experience, nothing wrecks the spirit in the classroom than disunity or a lack of focused attention on what's going on. Whereas if everyone is focused, it's very easy to get into not only the spirit of the topic, but the Spirit of the Lord can come and strengthen your efforts.
That was excellent. I really appreciate that. And again, whether the topic is explicitly spiritual or not, we can have that feeling of unity because we're all here to learn important things together. I love that. Did you have, yeah, Thomas?
I was interviewing a photography professor a couple weeks ago about, he's a new faculty member here. I was just wondering what he's going to do in his photography classes, spiritual strengthening. And he said, I'm going to tell my students their photography, the quality of their photography, the focus of their photography is a reflection of who they are. And their photography isn't going to improve and isn't going to change people's lives unless they are improving as people, as photographers. And in my decades of experience, the thing that I've seen change people the most is the atonement. So if you want your work to improve, you're going to have to apply the atonement to your life. And I think that applies to us as learners, as instructional designers, and whoever feels it.
Excellent. Love that. Yes?
I think there's an intercultural issue as well.
Speak up.
I think there's an intercultural issue at BYU. I think sometimes it's easy for us to assume that we're all on the same page in terms of spiritual focus and my background is in the humanities. I've been working at BYU for 15 years, teaching for 10, and I've never been in a classroom until this semester where we started with prayer. That's a new thing. That doesn't mean that the Spirit's not present in learning in other environments, but I think there are cultural differences even in the university on how we apply intellectually enlarging and spiritual context to the learning and to the teaching that we do.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love the verse in Alma where it says, the scriptures are laid before thee, yea, all things denote there is a God, yea, even the earth and all things that are upon the face of it, yea, its motion, yea, and also all the planets which move in their regular form do witness that there is supreme creator. I think it's great how he says all things denote there is a God, and whatever we're learning, we have eyes to see that we can see that.
I love that. That's wonderful. It's beautiful. We all had eyes to see that. We could find that everywhere, no matter what other people's intentions were. That's great. Did anyone feel moved that they want to do something personally themselves? I mean, again, being challenged by Elder Clark's statement, as good as we are, we need to be much, much better. That's why I assume you're in this program. You care about learning. You want to help others have a better learning experience, better educational experience. Going back to what Thomas says, we've got to be it ourselves. How can we help other people become excellent learners if we're not excellent learners in every sense of the word, fully consecrated to something much higher than ourselves? It is a task, it is a stretch to continue to grow, but have you felt anything, you would like someone to share something they feel they can do to become a little bit better in some of these areas in any of the aims of a BY education? Yes.
Sometimes I feel like I feel the desire to fill my schedule so much with things that I think might do these. And I think I do that to a fault sometimes, and perhaps some of us do that same thing. I would suggest removing some of the things that we find to be less essential to the fulfillment of those roles. That has helped me this semester to be more focused.
Good. Great idea. Thank you. Beth?
I just am struck by how relational these things are. I think often as a student you think, what do I need to do to get through this program? What courses do I need to take? But truly, if we want to be enriched by this community, we need to learn from people intellectually, spiritually, be influenced by their character. We can't really do that unless we're sharing ourselves with other people and allowing them to share themselves with us. So it's taking that time, which I'm not always the best at myself, but I'm motivated to do more of that, to be proactive in creating relationships with professors and students.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know from my experience as a student here that made all the difference for me, is building those relationships, taking that extra time. There's so much that goes into the learning experience. There's so much that all of us can do. I know that all of you are dedicated students. I know that you're working very hard. I guess I would conclude by encouraging us to seek after the Spirit in terms of what it is that we need to do as individuals, and to think about our role more conscientiously, not just to improve our own learning, but to help our fellow students to improve theirs by being a rich, important, and engaged part of the community that's helped lifting the boat. And that includes supporting the faculty too, who I know are trying to do a good job. There's things we can do to support them and show our appreciation and make it easier for them to share themselves and make it both spiritually strengthening and intellectually enlarging. So thank you for allowing me to come here and take some time. I really appreciate it, and hope I get a chance to get to know some of you better. Let me turn the time over to Dr. Graham here.
Let's give Jane a big hand of applause.